Good morning, welcome to Asher on Torah Anytime. We are up to Perek Gimel. Shlomo HaMelech's kingdom is set up and it's working. And now we're going to a story that really happened later on in the game, about 4 years into his Melucha. But V'yischaten Shlomo es Paroi Melech Mitzrayim. Shlomo HaMelech, his name Shlomo means peace. Shlomo is all about bringing shalom, and he's all about bringing together all of the nations of the world. Shlomo HaMelech is the one who builds the Beis Hamikdash. He's the one who's going to see the vision of being able to bring world peace, ki beisi, beis tefillah l'chol ha'amim. So he goes as one of his strategies of bringing peace is that he marries a woman. V'yischaten Shlomo es Paroi Melech Mitzrayim v'yikach es bas Paroi v'yivieo el ir David. So that's why he marries the bas Paroi, even though it's questionable if you're allowed to marry if you're allowed to marry somebody from Egypt. It's machlokes if it's only men or it's only a woman, but regardless, the idea was that he wanted to forge alliances with foreign nations. He brings it to Ir David at Kaloiso Livnois as Beisoi, as Beis Hashem, as Chumas Yerushalayim Sovev. Until he finished building his house and the house of Hashem and the Chumas Yerushalayim and the barriers around Yerushalayim. So he didn't want to bring in his wife into Yerushalayim until there was a place, until Hashem had a house as well. If you remember, when David HaMelech built his own personal house, he wanted to first build a Beis Hashem. I mean, not first. He said, how can I go build myself a house without having a Beis Hashem? And ultimately Hashem told him that you won't be able to build a house of Hashem because he was an Ish Damim, because there was blood on his hands and he was a warrior. And the house of Hashem has to be a house of peace and a house of acceptance, and therefore Shlomo HaMelech was going to build it. So Shlomo HaMelech also wanted to make sure that he doesn't do anything for himself until the house of Hashem is built. Now at that time, the people used to bring karbonos on bomos. So before there was a Beis Hamikdash, you had these mizbuchos, you had these altars where people used to bring carbon. Now, there was local altars, and there was public altars. Nivna bayis l'shem Hashem ad hayom ha'mehem. Vayav Shlomo es Hashem l'lechet b'chukas David Ove v'rak ba'bomos u'mezabeach u'maktir. So Shlomo loved Hashem that David HaMelech only used to go to the big bomos. Shlomo HaMelech used to go to the big public bomos. Why did he go to the big public bomos? Because it was problematic to bring in a small bama, because all the nations of the world, people who used to serve idols, used to have like your local little bama down outside in your backyard, and you used to serve for your own personal spiritual idol. There was no Beis Hamikdash, so everybody was able to bring in a bama, but it was like a marasayan. It looked like when you brought a bama in your backyard, it seemed like you could have been bringing to a bama to a foreign god. But when there was a public bama, when there was a big bama, then everybody knew that this was a bama l'Hashem. So the king goes to the king goes and he brings to the high bama.
How old was Shlomo now?
How old he was? According to Chazal, it comes out that he was 12 years old but if this is 4 years later, so then I guess he was 16. Other Mefarshim hold that he was 20 when he became king, so if this is 4 years later, then he was 24. And he brought 1,000 oilos. So he goes up to the big bama, even though Shlomo HaMelech didn't always go to the big bama, sometimes went to the small ones, but this time he went to a big bama and he brought 1,000 oilos l'Hashem. So that night in Givoin, Shlomo Melech had a dream. He had almost like a prophetic vision. This came from him bringing all of these sacrifices, and that brought a person to tremendous hashira. We always have to remember that when people used to bring karbonos back in the times of Tanakh, it brought them a tremendous spiritual hashira. They went into a type of a spiritual high. They went into a different dimension. Today we mamash can't comprehend it. It's like we can't even understand. What does it mean that we're going to bring a carbon? We're going to take a cow, we're going to slaughter it, and we're going to spritz its blood, and like what exactly does that do? And like if Mashiach is going to come today, what am I going to? I'm going to be bringing sheep. I don't have any. I mean, we don't work with livestock. Like if you would say you should be makar of your phone, for example, then you're saying something. If you're going to be makar, for example, you're going to say that chatos means that we're going to block your browser forever. And oila means klil toktor, that I like take the whole device and I elevate it up to heaven, and now I'm going to be media from going to be. And if you say that a shlama means that, okay, so this app, so WhatsApp I can keep, but TikTok not. I'm gonna in a certain chelik, gonna make a shlama. But you have to understand that in the Torah, when you brought karbonos, a person had a tremendous hashira. When Shlomo Melech brought 1,000 oilos, the effect of that hashira was that begivoy nira Hashem al Shlomo b'chaloim. He saw a prophetic vision of Hashem. He saw things that normally he wasn't able to see. And God asks him, what can I give you? It's very rare that you have Hashem ask a person, what can I give you? Now automatically we all know, what would we ask? If you're given the opportunity that you can ask for anything that you want. Hashem appears to you one night in a vision and he says, brother, what do you want? Everybody knows already that he wants to really help Hashem out, and he wants to help all of his moistus. No question. That's all you want to do. You want to give, in order for you to be able to help all the poor and give tzedakah, you need to have a lot of money. That's usually how it works.
Honestly, yes.
Shlomo Melech was a wise man. You did for my father tremendous kindness. He followed your ways. And you guarded this kindness, and you granted him a son, which is me. I'm that son who's a fulfillment of your promises to my father. You put me to rule in the place of my father David. But I'm a small lad, I'm small, I'm young, I don't know. I don't know the comings and the goings of being, of running a government, of running a nation. And I find myself in the midst of a people who you have chosen, a nation that can't be counted, and it's beyond numbers, it's beyond count, which comes along with its challenges. You have to understand that when you're ruling a nation, of a counted nation, that's limited in their intelligence, so then you're able to rule them. But when you're ruling the Jewish people, who are uncountable, not only because of their numbers, but because of their wisdom, and everyone knows that if you have two Jews, you have three opinions. So if you're ruling a nation that as many people as you have it squared in the amount of opinions, it's extremely difficult to rule it, especially if you're a young kid. Please grant your servant Lev Shemeya. These are amazing words. A heart that listens, or I would say Lev Shemeya, intuition. Lev Shemeya means a heart was that head. Lishpoit es amcha, in order to be able to judge your people, lahaven bein toiv lara, in order to distinguish between good and evil. Kimi yucha lishpoit es amcha koved hazeh. Who is able to judge such a heavy nation, such a Amcha Koved Azeh. It's amazing words, it's Lev Shemea. He asked, what Shlomo Melech asked was, give me a Lev Shemea. Give me a discerning heart. Give me an understanding heart. Give me an ability to derher and to verstehen. Why? For what purpose? For your purpose, that I should be able to judge the people. Now, if you go back into the whole Sefer of Shmuel, the main nekuda of David HaMelech that David HaMelech fought for, and the reason why David HaMelech is the king of all kings. From all of the kings that we have, David HaMelech is ultimately the king. We know the most about him. We speak the most about him. We go into every single detail of his life, intimate details of his life. Why? What was David HaMelech's message? His message was tzedek and mishpat. His message was to judge people fairly. He was a shofet. He was here to judge the people fairly, and he was here to stamp out corruption and to be just. Tzedek. And here, Shlomo HaMelech, he's saying, I'm taking over my father's mission of being a shofet. I'm asking you, give me a Lev Shemea for what purpose? Not that I should be able to say, wow, I understood a good Chiddush, and I understand you, Hashem, and therefore I'm on a spiritual level that I'm higher than everybody else around me. He said, no. I want a Lev Shemea in order lishpoit esamcha, in order that I should be able to be shofet. I should be able to bring justness and kindness and fairness to the world. And Hashem liked what he asked. He shal Shlomo as David HaZeh that he asked this request, and he gave up on his personal request of asking for Gezind Panusa Naches. And Hashem told him, because you didn't ask for long days, and you didn't ask for wealth, and you didn't ask that you should kill all your enemies, and you asked for wisdom to understand justice, because you asked the request in order to further my agenda, kaviyachol. I'm going to give you what you asked for. I'm going to give you a wise and understanding heart. I'm going to give you wisdom that's never been before and never been after. And even that you did not ask, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you wealth and honor. I'm going to give you so much wealth and honor that nobody's had before you. And here he adds a condition. I'm going to give you one more thing, but this is on condition. If you're going to follow my laws, my commandments, and my ways of connecting to me, I'm going to give you long, I'm going to give you long days on your kingdom as well. So the chiddush over here is that besides that Shlomo Melech asked Hashem for something which would be beneficial, for Kaviyachol, the purpose of why Hashem creates the world, which is to bring down tzedek and mishpat, to make a dir b'tachtonim. He also asked something that we never ask. He asked Hashem to change who He was, be'etzem. Usually we ask Hashem for chitzonizdike thing. We say, Hashem, give me a lot of money, I'll help you out. But here He's asking Hashem, transform who I am, change my personality, turn me into a wise person. Now you got Shlomo, and Shlomo Melech wakes up in a chaloim. It's a dream, it's a vision. But he knew that it was true, this dream. He stands before of the holy ark. He makes this huge feast, and then something very strange happened. He's sitting here after he got this download, this transformational experience of having wisdom download within him. Two noshim zoinos come. So either zoinos means prostitutes or zoinos means innkeepers. Regardless of what it means, the point of it was that they were living alone. So one of these women comes to the king and she says, me and this other woman were living alone. That's the key here, in this home. So there's nobody, there's no witnesses, and there's nobody else besides us two. And I gave birth with her in the house. 3 days later, she also had a child. She also gave birth. We're living here together, there's no stranger. So besides the two of us. And the child of this woman died because she rolled over on him in her sleep. She crushed him to death, or suffocated him to death. She woke, she went in the middle of the night, she took my child that was sleeping next to me, she takes my child, puts my child in her basin, and her son, she puts, her dead son, she puts in my basin. I get up in the morning to nurse my child. He's dead. He died. I looked at him in the morning, it's now my child. But I have no way to prove it because there was no witnesses. And the only way this story could have happened is also because the way how this child died was because she suffocated him. Because if the child would have been sick, then people would have came in to help. People from the outside, then they would have known and recognized this child. But being that there was never any witnesses who saw this child, there's no proof. And the other woman said, Loi, it's not so. My son is the one that's alive, and it's your son that died. And the other one says, your son is the one that died, and mine is the one that's alive. And then they went on speaking in front of the king, and they were going back and forth. And the king says, so here you see something about shofet and mishpat, and just good, if you ever have to debate, this is just a very important debating skill. Which Shlomo Melech says, because really, why does the pasuk have to repeat it? We heard the argument. The answer is that you always have to quantify what the two sides are saying and put it into a box. That way, it's not going to change later. So after everybody finished arguing, you repeat back to them. So you're saying this, and you're saying that, correct? Once they agree, we just closed the arguments. So you can't come later and say, and it's closed. That happens when you repeat it back, you quantify it, you close it, and now we can move on. And the king said, and he did a daring move, bring me a sword. They bring a sword before the king. Very strange, right? What do you do with the sword? There's a baby here crying. Cut this sword into two, the living child. It's a chatzi. So split them into two. It's like yachloiku. The woman that her son was really the one that was alive, her inner built-in rachmanis on her son caused her to say, please my Lord, give her the live child and don't kill him. And the other one said, Gam li, gam loch, lo yeh gezoiru. Nicht von mich, nicht von dich, schnad. Gam li, gam loch lo yeh, gezoiru, karem. Vayana Melech. Now really her intention was, the one whose child died, her intention was not so much that she wanted a live child. You have to understand that the woman who her son died, it's not like she was interested in adopting a child and having to raise him. Her point was she couldn't bear that she was the one who accidentally killed her own child, and now the other woman was going to have a child and taking care of a baby. So she wanted that her rival shouldn't be in a better position than her.
Misery loves company.
Misery loves company, and it's not right. It's more than misery loves company. Misery can't forgive and can't handle that somebody else is happy while they're in a state of misery. So she had to just level the playing field, that they're both equal. So that's why she said, Gam li, gam loch, lo yeh, gazoiru. Because if she really wanted to adopt this kid, she should have, if you would have any intention on the goodness of this child. Give her the live child. The one who said, the one who said the statement, that's the one, she's the mother. Everybody heard the story. The story went around town. Sensational judgment, sensational court case. And they had fear before the king. Why? Because they saw that the wisdom of Hashem is within him to lasis mishpat. So really, if you think about, I remember my Rav once, extremely wise man, and he was once talking to another big Yid who they say on him he has like intuition, Ruach HaKodesh, all different types of lofty spiritual levels. So I remember the Rav said, he told his friend, he said, up there in heaven, you see better than me, but down here below, I see further than you, and that's what counts. Story of Shlomo Melech was that with wisdom, he got control over the entire people. This is not a story of Ruach HaKodesh. It's not a story where he had Ruach HaKodesh that told him who was right. It was a story where wisdom, Chacham Adov Minavi. It was a story where wisdom gave him the insight of how to figure out something which nobody else was able to discern. And because of that, everybody feared him and was afraid that he would always be able to figure out. And that's how he put a fear of judgment on the people, that he stamped out crime. Not through having this mystical power that he was able to say, I see on your forehead. Wisdom has a certain power that when you're gifted with wisdom, you're able to accomplish things more than the Nevuah can accomplish down here below. Chaim.